afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. This is Crystal from the Crystal Clear Show. I'm your host, Crystal, and it's my passion to help professionals 30 and over to get unstuck from their corporate 9 to 5 jobs to launch and grow a successful six-figure business with my Crystal Clear blueprint. Today, we have our special guest, Sri Mahabir. Shri, in spite of her shyness, camera shyness, was determined to share her story and the stories of other entrepreneurs. In April 2020, during the pandemic, Shri created the IG Live series Journey of an Entrepreneur. After interviewing 100 entrepreneurs, she realized her passion. Shri helps entrepreneurs and corporate professionals to be able to phrase their camera shyness and help build visibility to their brand and business. Shri is a remote producer who offers a done for you service where taking your live streaming idea from concept to execution, designing the flyers and background, producing and turning it into a podcast. Shri has another show on LinkedIn which is called Sip and Chat with Shri and Charlene, guest host with Russ Hedge and D. Scott on Wednesday mornings on IG called The Backstage Experience. Please welcome Sri Mahabir to the Crystal Clear Show. How are you doing, Sri?
I'm doing amazing, and thank you for that introduction. I look back and I'm thinking, whoa, 3 years ago, this all came because of taking the first step and going live.
It is indeed. And isn't it funny? While during the pandemic, a lot of people are afraid it might be the end of the world. There are so many people who have launched and grown their business because I, for one, am one of them. And I see that you are also one of them. It's just amazing.
It wasn't, I had always known I was going to start a business. And in 2019, I started my first business. It was a
Mhm.
VA business. And then when the pandemic happened, it was all about how do I get visibility? How do I get people to notice me in this stream of so many people, sea of so many people? And live streaming was what caught my eye from Gary Vee, Lewis Howes, Ed Milet going live. And I said, I can do that. And then when I saw my friend going live on Instagram, I knew I could do that. And
Right.
that's how the show Journey of an Entrepreneur came to life. I asked 9 people and the 10th one said yes. So next week is the 3-year anniversary of the show going live and celebrating all of it because there were some highs and there were some lows and there were some losses, but there were a lot of gains.
Yes, I can definitely imagine the many gains that you have had in the past 3 years, all the people that you have helped through the years also. But first, let me ask you our number one controversial question. Very controversial indeed. So if you are a superhero, who would it be and why?
This is a good question. If I had to be a superhero, it would be um I the one first one comes Sailor Moon and then the other one is Shira.
Wow, you do look like Shira, the old Shira, I think. I'm not saying you're old, but the original one, I would say, not the new version. I prefer the original one.
Yeah, the original one. And the reason why I picked these two cuz Sailor Moon, she was interesting in her own way and she
Mm,
was doing her own thing and Shira was always fighting for what's right. And when I look at what I do for others, it's always like let's try to do what's best for the guest or the client and then fighting for them to understand they have value to share to others. They should talk about their business. They should have access to others and for others to know who they are. So that's why I've chose those two characters.
wow. And I love those two characters. It just makes me feel like very, very young again. Well, and I also ask my guests for their favorite quotes. And this one quote that you have given me is, I think, in connection with your favorite superheroes. Um, and I'm going to read it out loud so that our viewers would know. So I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel, by Maya Angelou. Isn't that amazing? That's just like the two heroes that you chose, but why did you choose that quote
When I
exactly?
first, this is a great question. When I first heard the quote, I was very young and I understood it and the impact of it because it was true. Nobody really remembers what you said or how you did it, but they remembered how they felt. My uncle had shown me that when I was young, I was like maybe in 8th grade or 7th grade, summertime, spending time with my aunt and uncle and my cousins in Miami. And my uncle had he got really sick, and so I was taking care of him.
Mm.
And he never forgot how I made him feel. He always said, "You always took care of me. You always made me feel good, even when I was having my tremors, or you just always were there." And I remember when I went back to Houston and then I volunteered, it was the same thing. I love the way you make me feel. And that's why this particular quote stood out to me because it's true. People will forget, hey, maybe there's some event. We always have some event. Like if you were to ask somebody right now in the comments, what were you doing on 9/11? Where were you? What was happening? What were your thoughts? And many of us can remember that day because that's when the World Trade Towers went. It didn't matter if you were from the United States or not. It
Right.
was it was a day. It was a day for everybody. But if you were to ask, what were you doing on 9/10? Nobody remembers. You're like,
It's true.
what? And it's the
Right.
same thing that you think about mo monumental days in your life when your children were born, or when you graduated, or you got married, or you met your significant other, or what was I feeling the first time I went live? Those are things that I won't forget. The day before, the day after, it's something different. So it's the same way. How do you make somebody feel? And they'll never forget, oh, when I met you and I needed somebody, you were there. Or you made me feel comfortable when I wasn't feeling like I was part of a group.
Right.
Or if you work with Crystal and after talking to her, you'll feel like, oh, I'm loved and I'm part of something bigger.
Right. Well, just reminds me of how we celebrate birthdays here. We used to, well, we still do have this tradition now that, if I can say that, because it's been going for some years now, and we ask people, the the invited guests, to give a word, one word that describes the person celebrating her birthday, because most of the
Oh,
time we say that when they're dead already. Oh, I remember him, or I remember her, she made me feel good, she was so kind. But that person that never really know that you she made her she made you feel that way. If So when it's our birthday, we ask the one word, how would you describe this person? And I believe it's a good thing to be reminded, because sometimes when you are feeling low and when you are feeling disappointed or frustrated, and then you remember this word that person described you with, and it just makes you smile. And makes it feel worthwhile. And it's true. It's how you make people feel when you are with them, not because you gave her an extravagant gift, but sometimes when if it's the love language of that person, then of course he or she will always remember that. But if that's not her love language or his love language, then it's going to be forgotten. So it's really important how you make people feel. And I just love this. I just love this. This is one of my favorites now. Thank you for sharing this.
You're welcome. And I love what you do for your birthday tradition, celebrating the person while they're here so they
Yeah,
don't forget. We're not
it's
celebrated enough. We forget along the way.
yes, it's true. We often hear the negatives, and with that we change. We change the tradition instead of waiting until we die.
Oh,
We remind them every year on the birthday why we celebrate them. So, I would like to ask you, Shri, what is your biggest why? So, why did you start going live 3 years ago, or why did you start your business? What is your biggest why in your life?
my biggest why is my daughter, and I wanted to leave a legacy for her. And when her father passed away, he didn't leave a legacy. He didn't. And so I felt like there has to be more that
Mhm.
I can do for her. And that's when I started the business because I worked a 9 to 5. You can't leave a 9 to 5 to your child, but you can leave a business to them. And then going live was just all about building visibility. And now looking back, she has so much content that she can show her grandchildren. Her grandchildren can show their children because now there is this vault of videos and live streaming shows to come back to. Because I also think what we're talking about doesn't really change over time. If we
Mhm.
look at Earl Nightingale or even Bob Proctor or even John Maxwell, you'll see things change, times change in how we do business, but the fundamentals never change. And
Yes,
so we will always be talking about the fundamentals, our emotions, how they play a role as an entrepreneur, mindset. Then there's organization, strategies, systems, procedures. What do they look like? And how are you presenting yourself?
right,
There's always a maybe a little bit faster way to do something, but there's always going to be all of this information that's there. And so this was one of the reasons, the main reasons why I keep going. Cause sometimes I want to say, no, I don't want to do this anymore. But I always think of my daughter and what example am I setting to her?
oh I love that. What example are we leaving them, our children? Is it persisting, or is it quitting, or is it success and failure? But why, how do we show ourselves in times of failure? Is it really failure when we fail, or is it failure when we stop? And how do we explain it to
Mm, yep. If you're, I always look at failure as not taking that step, not
them?
posting that course. I've done that.
Right.
Not overthinking about a course. Been there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the failure isn't that no one signed up because I made the offer. It
Mm-hmm.
actually gave me insight into what am I missing? How
Right.
can I make this better? Versus if I just never put it out there to market.
Indeed. How can I add value to others versus I'm just not going to do anything at all today and just watch Netflix all day long. I have been there also. But what is the one thing that makes you move forward? So I would like to ask you, when and where did you start this journey of entrepreneurship?
So I
Mhm.
started this when I even think about entrepreneurship, I started it way before I actually did do it. There was always some MLM, multi level marketing. There was the services of helping people or asking for money for exchange of services like homework. Then there was the buying the clothes because there was a retailer in Trinidad who would buy clothes at a cheap rate. And so I was like, I could be your buyer. And
Mm-hmm.
then there was then came this business that I started, which was a VA
Mm-hmm.
business. And then after 100 Instagram live episodes, then I started my coaching business of helping entrepreneurs get on camera. And then my agency was born from there. And now I have a Facebook group, and I am going to be getting more into the group coaching because what's funny is I started with group coaching, but now I went to one-on-one and now I'm coming back. But the agency, I never dreamed of it, but it was something that I always wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, if I didn't take the first step of going live, we wouldn't be here. Or if I want to even go further back, and this is a question that I ask all of you who are watching the live or replay, what was what were you doing as a child? Like, how were you playing? So,
Right.
whenever I would play, I always believed that I was going to have a show and I was going to be the star of my show, and how the opening would look and how the closing would look and just the characters. So, this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I was doing from young. And here we are in 2020, I started a show.
Right. I love I love that you asked what were you doing when you were young, because I remember when I was young I was already selling something to my sister, to my youngest sister. So my mom would send us money from Belgium to the Philippines, and I would always run out of money. But then I would find a way to resell the things I bought to my younger sister, and my sister would always buy them. She's my number one client since since when we were young. So I have always been an entrepreneur. So I believe that what you because we hear this over and over again, do what you love, do what you love, do what makes you smile when you wake up. What is it exactly that makes you smile when you wake up? Is it so is it working online, is it selling something? Hi Vanessa's here watching us live. Hi there. So say hello to us. We have viewers. Say hello to us in the comments. And yeah, I
It always becomes fascinating when you connect the dots of why you do what you do or why you don't do what you do. If
that's
you're afraid to start that coaching program, or if you're afraid to start that video or even live streaming show podcast, there's always some reason why you're not doing it. Oh, because someone told me when I was younger that nobody would want to look at me. And this is a true story, that I wasn't pretty enough, or I was too fat, or I'm too dumb.
mm-hmm.
But as adults, we don't really say that. We just say we are uncomfortable. And it's during that mindset session when we start to work together that we dive deeper into that, because they do surface.
That's
How
true.
many times of many of entrepreneurs can talk about, hey, um, this used to be something that I faced as a child. I was ridiculed for the way that I looked or sounded. So now I'm bringing that to where I am today.
Oh well, Vanessa says she's been following you for some time now, and your contents are on fire.
Thank you.
She loves seeing your interviews also. Well, so that would go lead us to our next question. Would you say that you are already successful now?
I would say I am successful. I also say that I'm not successful because in my mind I had a different thought in feeling of where I would be 3 years later. However, when I look at the amount of growth that I've made within myself, it's crazy.
Right.
because 3 years ago, I was really dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of what I was thinking others saw of me when really that's not what I thought they saw of me was not what they really saw. And so all of that, it was work.
Right.
And anybody who's watching this, just look at where you are today and don't be bothered by if you didn't hit your goals or if you didn't hit the monetary goals. Even Gary Vee talked about that. Look how
Mhm.
far in the process you've grown. There are
Right.
things that I can share with someone who's been in business for 10 years and we can kind of have some similarities because we've been through it. Now, yes, they've had some 10 more years of experience, but there are things that I've experienced that they didn't, and they've experienced things that I have not. And I
Right.
never thought that that was possible, especially when I first started interviewing. I'd be like, how can I be at some of the levels that some of these entrepreneurs? Well, now I understand.
I understand. The first interview I had, I was stuttering. So there you go.
You're doing amazing now. You don't look
Thank
like you're stuttering. And with every episode, it is just a practice to the next. And then it becomes practice for your master class. And then it
right.
becomes practice for being able to speak on public stages
Yeah.
or even just speaking in the room with
Indeed.
other amazing souls or somebody. And this one always gets me. The amount of times that I've been doing videos and going live is being able just to talk to one person who really needs it.
It's true. That's also my goal. If I can help somebody, one person today, that's I'm already happy with it because I just want to add one of enormous value to one person at a time, and then I can make a difference in one person's life, then I'll make another difference tomorrow, and that's how I would love to be remembered, to leave my legacy. So I would like to ask you three best practices that you could give us and that we could implement immediately and daily to be successful. What would they be?
Ooh. I would say have a routine that you're comfortable with when it comes to your faith. So if it's writing, journaling, or reading or praying, I'm really big into faith. So however that looks like. Then there's the I I'm big on exercise. So I'm
Mm.
at an age where I need to exercise, and that could be just a walk. That
Right.
could be working out. That could be yoga, hot yoga, or that could be cycling, whatever that looks like. And then learning. So some people will be like, oh, you got to read books. I'm just saying, learn something new. That could be your podcasts. It can be watching a live streaming show. It could be master classes, investing in working with a coach. It could be the courses that are out there. I mean, there's so many things that you can do, but the more you learn, the more you are keeping up with things, especially in your industry, and what are the pain points of your clients, then it makes it easier to put out content. Because sometimes we're like, what do we talk about? What are you
It's
dealing with? Or what is something that you can share? Like right now, I can talk about I'm blue in the face about podcasting or live streaming. But the problem is that you're stuck on a story based on something that someone told you years ago that is not true.
right.
How can I help you get past that? And that is just I'm telling you right now that you're beautiful and you're
Mhm.
handsome and you have value to share.
Indeed. I love that because when I was young, I remember my grandmother. May God rest her. May she rest in peace. But she's a beautiful singer. So that when I would sing, she would say, just be quiet, just stop a bit because you're singing off key. And I would perceive myself as a bad in talent. But actually, I learn now as an adult that we all have different talents and abilities. It's not only singing or dancing, being able to face in the camera, being able to walk outside and talk and mingle and is also a talent because not everyone can do that. And now I feel so good about myself being able to share my talents and my abilities here in the Crystal Clear show because I know in some ways people can relate in the stories that we share, and people will just say, "Oh, I feel that." And I also feel demotivated because I'm going through this in my life, and I loved what you said about, for example, sharing good values, making other people feel good about themselves, just being able to say you are beautiful, you are handsome. We don't say that often anymore to each other, and that's very unfortunate. And we are telling you now, you are beautiful and you are talented and you are able. If we can, you can too, because we are all equipped with fully and immeasurably, and we have everything that we need to be successful.
Yes, we do.
So we can go on and on and on with our show, but I believe that we can impart also one last crystal clear gem. If you can you share one last crystal clear gem that they can apply in their business, in their lives, Shri?
This is one that not a lot of people like to hear, but it's the truth. You learn from your failures, or as I call them, lessons, because at least you tried.
Right.
And it was a process to get there. So now you can go back and say, okay, I made this offer. Why didn't it work? What can I do differently? How can I make it something that somebody wants? Or maybe you were putting together something for somebody. Maybe it's a package, or maybe it was creating their presentation and you forgot something. Then it gets you to think, oh, what was I doing? How did I make, why did this happen? So it's always in what I call lessons again, but they're failures that you learn what can you do better for the next time. Because
Right.
we're not always going to be perfect, but we can always strive to do better than we did the day before.
Oh, we can always strive to be better than the day before because failures are not failures after all. There are lessons, like you said. We only fail when we quit and when we stop and we say, we're not going to do
Mhm.
anything. I'm just going to close the book and I'm just going to leave it as it is. Then that's failure. I would call that failure because if you're not learning anything, you're disintegrating. And stopping and quitting is just another way of disintegrating. So failure is necessary to grow, to persist, to resist that temptation to quit or to stop. So I thank you so much, Shri, for your time. Thank you to our viewers.
Thank you. Thank you for
And
having me on.
it is my pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in to Crystal Clear Show, where you are now doesn't matter where you are going, does. So remember to get crystal clear wherever you go, and have a nice weekend.
Bye,
Goodbye.
everybody.